The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Wednesday. We're so thrilled to be here with you today because on Wednesdays, you know, the first segment is Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is going to be here answering your questions in real time. And then the second hour we do Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh Jackson will be here with me and our very special guest from LA Parent Magazine talking about their new feature that helps parents get hooked up with services for their special needs kids. So that'll be very exciting in the second hour. As we start the show, I want to remind you that there are lots of ways to watch the show and lots of ways to interact. Emily is going to cycle through some of those ways. And while she does that, I'm going to remind you that one way to watch us live is at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you have the opportunity, there's a white box there. You can put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and it shows up magically in real time on our screen here. So I can ask your questions of our experts in real time. It's totally free. You don't have to log in. We don't have any of your personal information unless you include it, and you can if you want to. I have a way of blocking that from our audience at home. So please participate in the way that suits you best, and don't forget to like us on Facebook and share. If you see something here on the show, make sure that you share it with friends and spread the word because we're here to help. Without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us. Welcome. Good morning. It's always a thrill to have you here.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Well, you're a true expert in the field of autism. You've been working multiple decades with children on the autism spectrum, and I always like to remind everybody you're a true visionary in the field of autism.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I have been doing this for a really long time, so you learn quite a bit from the kids.
Well, and we're so thrilled to learn at your feet and to hear what you say
Thank you.
when people write in with questions. But always at the beginning of the show, we like to remind everybody that no one on the show gives child-specific advice, and
That's
there's a
right.
really good reason for that. We just couldn't get enough information to give child-specific advice. Is that right?
We really want to be careful about that because we don't want to give, such exact advice that it doesn't apply to your child. So we're just going to try to answer things in more general terms and refer. Most of the time, we'll be able to just give you direction.
Right, but that direction is very helpful. In fact, we've had some people write back in. There was somebody who had written in last week about a 16-year-old and wanting to help with feeding issues, and at school in particular, and you gave some really good advice, and she was very excited and wrote into us the other day that she got her to take the first bite of applesauce the other day.
Oh, awesome.
And it was a
That's very
woohoo kind of moment. So thrilling. We've had several people write in. We'll do some follow-ups throughout the day here. But I want to get started right away with some questions that you guys have sent in. In fact, I want to start with some of the stuff that we've gotten on Facebook already this morning. Somebody wrote in and said, my son is on risperidone. Did I say that correctly? My question is, how serious are the claims that this drug is causing breast growth? I have not heard this before.
I actually have, I don't remember if I've read about this or not, but I don't think Risperdal or risperidone is having an effect. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some research, but it's got to be very tiny. Risperdal is an antipsychotic medication, so I can't imagine how it would be affecting hormones. I don't know. And as a whole, we want to try to stay away from antipsychotic medications because, I mean, antipsychotic medications are not really helping anything. They're just kind of, I guess, numbing the symptoms.
Okay.
It's kind of like taking Tylenol, I suppose, or something that will kill the pain for that period of time. It doesn't really solve why the pain is there or what the issue is to begin with, so it doesn't have any interaction with what's causing it.
Okay.
Same thing with risperidone. It's just, it's basically for things like aggression or pretty severe self-stimulatory behaviors that can't be controlled.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, interesting topic, and
Yeah, I'll look into it. I'll look into whether or not that has anything to do with hormone change.
Okay. Another parent who wants to know, how do you get a child with autism to understand when a parent is hurt and needs their help?
Oh yeah, that's a very, that again goes back to the whole concept of perspective taking or theory of mind, and it is a very, very important thing, empathy, not just with parents, but in general. It's a very important, I guess, characteristic for our children to be able to first of all, identify when someone needs help and then be able to give help or want to give help. So the way that we do it, it's one of our lessons in our cognition program or in our curriculum, and what we do is we act it out a little bit more extremely, and we will start with very, let's say, specific scenarios. In fact, we start out with pictures. So for instance, there's a picture of a girl who's fallen off of her bike and is hurt and is crying. And so we'll set up that scenario, like we'll go through the picture and say, what does this look like? What happened? What do you think she's feeling? And how would you help her? And you have to realize that these are many different lessons that get you to the point where you can actually make sense of this one thing. So I wouldn't try this just with any child. I mean, we try it with our kids once they've already mastered, being able to describe a picture or a scenario, understanding emotions, that's a whole other set of lessons, and then being able to do inferences. Inferences mean looking at some sort of visual, whether it's real life or a picture, and being able to infer something just happened and what was that. So if there's a child standing next to a bicycle crying and it looks like she has a boo-boo, then what happened is she fell, and then basically being able to attach emotions to various scenarios. Obviously, if you're hurt, the emotion that goes with it is you're sad. That's why you're crying. So all of those have to be taught first individually through these lessons, and then ultimately it gets to kind of the empathy lesson, which is, so what would you do? How could you help? And then we go through, I don't know, Shannon, you probably remember better than I do. Maybe.
Well, you're reminding me. I really hadn't realized when Jem was going through this kind of thing what it was leading up to. And you're saying this, and I'm flashing on all these pictures of different times that we were in different locations, and they were teaching him different elements of this until we arrived at the point where people were interacting with him. And one of the key things I'm remembering is that something would happen with me, but there was always another person, whether it was dad or the therapist, that would be a voice in Jem's ear saying,
why is she crying? Why is she upset? What's going on? Exactly. And so we usually, as you know, we start everything two-dimensional because it's easier with pictures, and then once you've done that, then the therapist will act out something. Like they'll come into the room and pretend to slip and fall, or pretend to have a drink fall on them or something, and then have a reaction, and then the child is prompted to really pay attention, and now it's easier for the child because now they kind of recognize the facial expressions, and they recognize, that's the surprised look, or that's the upset look, and these are my standard responses to when someone's upset. And then as we do that, we generalize it more and more and more, so that the child now has new responses and can also pick up more and more subtle cues. But initially it has to be done in the form of a lesson, because our kids, when they see something like a parent or even a sibling like crying or something, their first reaction is not empathy or, oh, wow, somebody's hurt, I should do something about it. It's more like, that noise is really bothering me, or,
Right.
so
How is this affecting me?
Very different reaction, right.
So interesting. Yeah, I'm remembering all these different times, the different lessons.
Yeah.
And it's always fascinating to me because when we were living it, when the therapists were coming in and doing these lessons, I didn't always know or ask. If I had it to do over again, I would ask, now, how does this fit together with this?
Right.
Because now afterwards, it's like, I get to see how the puzzle got put together,
right.
And how we arrived at where we arrived at. It's fascinating.
Well, so for parents, I think it is confusing. It's kind of difficult because we have, I don't know how many, like, really by the time you start teaching the cognition lessons, there's easily 100 other lessons that have been taught that have come together at this point. It is a higher level lesson. So really, for this parent, I would recommend using skills.
Yeah.
Because the order of how you bring these things together is really important. If you start teaching a child something like, look at my reaction, and this is how you should respond when you see this reaction. What you'll get from the child is possibly appropriate, but it'll be very rote.
Right.
And they won't really start to reason it out and figure out, oh, so I have to pay attention to when other people get hurt, and if it's a child, it'll sound like or look like this, and if it's a parent, it'll be like this, and my reactions are different if it's a parent or an older person or if it's a younger person, and they're also different based on the level of urgency of the thing that just happened.
Yeah.
It's one thing if someone falls, it's another thing if someone's arm is broken, so all of that, there's a lot in there.
I always have these light bulb moments when you're talking, and I just had the light bulb moment because a lot of times parents will ask about the difference between DTT and ABA, and what I just realized, and a lot of times there's fear around that if we're just doing DTT that the kids are going to have a robotic response, and they're just going to turn into little robots. And I just realized that the difference between DTT, and tell me if I'm wrong, but in DTT, in that little moment, they're teaching them how to respond. But in ABA, across ABA, they're really teaching them how to think.
That's a really great way to put it. I hadn't actually thought about it that way, because in my world, it's just DTT is a procedure. It's a technical procedure. And it's a really good procedure. It's almost like anything you want to memorize, right? Like, let's say you want to learn any new skill, let's say playing the guitar, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You first start out with, I guess, memorizing notes, perhaps memorizing the locations of the keys on the guitar, very discrete things that set the rules, right? So this is how you use your left hand, this is how you use your right hand, and so on. Very discrete rules. And then you mix and match the discrete rules that you've learned, right? So you can make different sounds if you hold it this way, and then now you're applying more and more complicated things to it. And that's how I see DTT. DTT is the framework. Like, without learning things in discrete sets, it's going to be, I don't know, I see it as extremely difficult and very, it just makes things a lot longer. It's kind of like you're learning things in an unorganized manner. Discrete trial makes it very organized, and as you said, you don't just stop at doing discrete trials, so you don't leave things rote. What you do is you generalize them to normal life, and you apply different scenarios and different sets of rules to what you've learned, so then it becomes really normal.
Yeah. And then when you add in the fact that the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, you guys have been at the cutting edge of doing cognition and executive functions and social skills, and really paring it down to those fine little moments and teachable moments, and then helping to generalize them, it makes it possible. I watched you guys teach my child how to think through a problem and consider it from many different perspectives, so that he now does that freely and doesn't have to be prompted to do it. It was fascinating to watch. And the same kind of thing can be done with any child, but as you said, if you're going to get to the point where they notice that a parent is hurt and can respond appropriately, there are so many lessons that come before that.
That's right. And there's, I I think what we've done, which is probably not it's a disservice, I think, is because we've been doing this for a really long time. I mean, I remember when we wrote the first set of sort of cognition lessons or theory of mind lessons, that would have been, I was still in the Encino office, and I'm trying to think how long ago that was. That was in like mid-90s, you know, so that's a really long time ago for this field.
So you've been doing it a very long time.
So just the very advanced programming we've been doing also for a very long time, and so you don't think about the importance of each one.
Yeah.
So ideally what we should have done, instead of putting everything into our curriculum, and everything is in skills, and so skills is such a massive place for information that I think the individual components don't get highlighted enough. So it's sort of like, you know, the value, I'm sure there are other parents who would love to know how to teach their child this particular skill, empathy, and if we were to highlight just the steps for that in itself might
the
be
recipe.
something. Right.
The recipe. I
the
love
recipe for that. And having said that, though, there's like, you know, 50 other things that are just as important in skills already, including all the steps for
So
this.
the cookbook for skills, so that you can look up how to get to an end skill and see that these are the 35 things you have to add before you get there. I love that idea.
And actually, though, if you do go into skills, and one of the very good features that they put into skills early on was the search feature.
Yes.
And if you put in there things like empathy or teaching perspective, all of these other lessons will come up.
And the prerequisites for them. I love
as
it.
well, yeah.
We should take a break, but when we come back, we're going to have Dr. Doreen answer more of the questions that you guys have been sending in through the night on the live feature, so stick with us.
Hey guys, for the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autismlive. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autismlive. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim at the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. Our very special guest in the studio with us is Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. We call her Dr. Doreen. And we enjoy it so much when you're here because we get so much good information. We've had a lot of people in the last couple of days writing in about adults on the autism spectrum, and the questions have come in from parents. One in particular here right now: can you guide me to resources for an adult child not diagnosed until after the age of 20, please?
Gosh, there's very little out there. I wouldn't, if someone really has not been diagnosed until 20, then their issues are so mild that you shouldn't be looking for material in the autism spectrum world. I wouldn't.
Okay.
I would imagine that you should be looking more for material in, let's say, the anxiety world. So, you know, depending on what the issues are, and perhaps this parent can write in more next time, I'm just guessing that some of the things you're dealing with are anxiety related, and then if you just read any kind of sort of self-help books on anxiety, there's a lot on anxiety that's very, very useful and applicable to our field. In fact, I do this really long lecture on anxiety and talk about different things you could do to reduce anxiety, because I see that in so many of our kids and adults. So
I'd love to do a whole hour with you on anxiety.
Yeah, we should,
because we've had so
definitely.
many people write in with questions about that, and of course they want questions answered for their young children with anxiety, but a lot of teenagers and adults,
Yep.
and the parents are writing in and saying that they also have anxiety, and we know that that's
Yes.
not uncommon.
Well, I mean, how could you not have anxiety as a parent?
Well, there
Because
is that.
As a parent, what you're basically worrying all the time.
Yeah,
So
full-time
yes.
job.
Full-time job of worrying. And yeah, absolutely. We should do a show on anxiety. I've unfortunately never been able to keep my anxiety lecture to 1 hour, but somehow I'll figure to do that.
We could devote 2 hours to
It's
it, make it a two-parter.
It's just that it's fascinating. I think in order to be able to treat it well, it's really important to identify it in autism as well. I mean, people don't recognize the symptoms of anxiety in autism because it's overshadowed. It's sort of like, oh, that's just part of the autism.
Right.
But it isn't really part of the autism. I mean, even if it is part of the diagnostic criteria, like let's say, hoarding. Like a lot of our kids hoard objects, right? They'll carry 2 things around, or they'll carry 1 thing around, or they'll put their things in a particular place, or they will really need to carry something all the time, or hide it, or whatever. That's anxiety. That's a pure symbol of anxiety, and we see it because if you've been trained to recognize those symptoms, you see it in the kids. Things like, even things like putting things in order or lining objects up, those types of things do imply anxiety. Checking, like going back and forth, those are anxiety type things. Avoiding situations that are difficult, that's anxiety. So there's a lot of stuff that just, first of all, you need to get really good at, like, recognizing, oh, the reason he's doing this is because there's anxiety, and then treating it.
Okay.
Otherwise, we could definitely spend an hour just talking about the treatments, but then I'm not sure so that's kind of why my lecture keeps going long always, is because when I tell people, just think of yourself for a day, like if you are sick, like let's say you've gone somewhere and had something to eat and you don't feel well, your stomach doesn't feel well. It's interesting because the number one problem or ailment that has been contrasted to a feeling of anxiety is gastrointestinal pain. So when you have GI problems, like let's say food poisoning or just your discomfort in your stomach and so on, you feel anxious. It's the same feeling. It's a very similar feeling to when you feel anxious. It's interesting. That's why people often say, oh, maybe you have an upset stomach because you're anxious. No, you don't get an upset stomach from just, mild levels of anxiety, right? It actually is just that they're very similar symptoms, so that we feel they're the same thing. So just think about our kids who have an actual upset stomach. I mean, they have like inflammation of the gut and so on. Think of, and just imagine how much anxiety they're experiencing. You know, that feeling of just kind of like unease, right? Same thing as sleep. Like, how many of our kids don't sleep? If you and I don't sleep, we will definitely start experiencing heightened levels of anxiety. So there's a lot of stuff that it makes it a necessary component. Anxiety is, there's no question, it's a big part of autism. I should write something about that, because people don't realize it yet. Like, it's just something I've been saying for a long time, but it's not recognized, it's not part of the symptoms. People don't talk about it as such.
And yet, as parents, I feel like it's a question that everybody keeps raising. Each week we get a question that has to do with anxiety. So I would love it if you would write something.
Yeah, we really should do something.
It would be a service to all of us. If and I would love to set aside a week.
We should do a show for that. Yeah,
absolutely. If not 2 weeks. Okay, so looking at anxiety, I think that's fascinating. Instead of looking at the autism material, if the child is over 20,
well,
an adult.
if the child's just been diagnosed over 20. That means the individual is very, very high functioning, and otherwise there would have been an earlier diagnosis, or someone would have pointed something out.
A really good point. We're actually going to take another break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about some more things having to do with adults on the spectrum, so stick with us.
The Center for Autism and Related Disorders strives to make autism treatment a reality for all children. We're happy to announce the opening of our newest treatment center in Thousand Oaks, California. To schedule an appointment, contact CARD today.
Welcome back. We are here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet for our segment called Ask Dr. Doreen. We ask you guys to write in on all the different features that we have and ask your questions, and then we give them to Dr. Grandpichet. As I said before, she does not give child-specific advice, but can help to point us in a direction so that we can get more resources, more information, more help. We had somebody who wrote in via email about their child who is in their late 20s, and she specified that the child got a diagnosis very early on of ADHD and OCD. The mom always felt that there was something more, and now we don't know how recently, but there is an Asperger diagnosis. She writes, he has not been able to hold a job for 2 years now. He lives at home. I'm trying to teach independent living skills. It's difficult as he does not retain material. He sees a counselor, but I question if that person understands his disabilities and how they affect him. I'm not getting any younger and have concerns about his future. Any information or sources of information that you could give me would be greatly appreciated. And she goes on to write that it's extremely stressful for her, as that she has some health issues, including MS. And I know, parents tend to break down after years and years and years of stress. We know more and more parents who have autoimmune issues as a result of, things going on with them, and it just heightens. You want to talk about a downward spiral, because then you start to worry about what happens when I'm not here.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine. I mean, I just like my hat off to these parents and parents who handle it and keep going through so many years.
I would like to add too that she gave us more information that he is absolutely adamant about refusing to take any medication, that is off the table for him.
That's fine. So, one of the things I often tell parents when I see them is the labels really don't mean all that much. They help us to kind of classify, but they don't mean much, and this is a really good example of that. So this is someone who was labeled with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, at some point earlier, as well as with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And so if you take the symptoms of those two things, so just ADHD and OCD, ADHD would be the main symptoms, and I don't know if it's what type of ADHD, but let's assume it's combined type. So that means that the person has inattention or difficulty paying attention to certain stimuli and certain situations, and perhaps also some hyperactivity. We don't know. But, those symptoms of ADHD, the inattentive type of ADHD, are so similar to autism that traditionally it was very hard for like new people coming into the field, new diagnosticians, to even be able to differentiate and say, is this ADHD or is it more autism type or high functioning autism? And really there are quite a few differences actually. The ADHD type individual is much more connected to society than the autism individual. People with autism really do have a very difficult time interacting and understanding other people, and that's a big difference from ADHD. ADHD people, they interact fine, it's just that it's got to be at their speed.
Right.
So they're like going really fast, or they're jumping from one stimulus to another and interacting and so on, but they interact, so they know all the ins and outs of how to interact socially. Now, when you combine it with OCD, when you say there's obsessive compulsive behavior, that's where the element of anxiety comes in, right? Because OCD is one of the anxiety disorders. So of course then it becomes a little bit harder, because then now you're entering a world that's similar to ASD to autism, because now you're saying, okay, this person has a really hard time paying attention to stuff, and oh, they also have the symptom that's kind of much more like rigid. Obsessive compulsive disorder, it's like you're doing repetitive behaviors that could easily be the same as in autism what we call the self-stimulatory symptoms or behaviors. So it's very, I can see from, you know, if I had met this individual earlier, I would have been able to see how, yes, on the one hand you could say ADHD and OCD, but really it's more Asperger's perhaps, because the combination of OCD and ADHD would resemble Asperger's in some ways. But having said that, let's go back and let's not even care about the label, let's just care about the symptoms for a minute.
And about getting some progress and
getting
help,
some help.
Right?
So this first, exactly. And so just to start, and medication is off the table, okay. What you're dealing with primarily is possibly an individual who actually does have difficulty learning and is therefore anxious as a result of that. Now, I'm not saying they're anxious in the same way as you and I would be. Like, so this isn't someone who wakes up early in the morning worried and, you know, tries to do their best to get to work on time or whatever. That's not something. What's actually happening, and it happens in a lot of our patients, is that you have a certain level of anxiety, and if your anxiety is high enough, you'll procrastinate, you'll completely avoid. So what it sounds like with this individual is they really are avoidant. So the way I see it is the skill set's not there, so the person's having a hard time learning, let's say, independent work skills, and they calm themselves through these compulsive behaviors, which are anxiety reducing, and in the meantime they avoid actually, you know, getting it together and getting a job and so on and so forth, because this skill set is not there, and it's hard for them to actually independently get a job.
Right.
So here you are as mom trying very hard to teach them something that's very hard for them to do, and yes, it can be extremely frustrating and so on. So two places, I guess, we do this. Like, first of all, let me just say this is one of the things CART does. We train our adults and adolescents on vocational skills, and so if you are anywhere close to where we can help you, we would love to do that. We're you know, we get all kinds of coverage for this.
And you can go to centerforautism.com, click on the locations tab, and see if you're close to one.
Right, and if you're not close to one of our locations, then you can still go on the Center for Autism site and request remote services. That'll be a little bit harder for us to get to you. That's sort of giving you your own supervisor who actually comes to you, but depending on where you are, we might already have supervisors in those areas. We have 200 supervisors and they travel and so on, so we might be able to get to you fast. But we can definitely give you guidance, and if you are close to one of our sites, we'll put a team on your child, and we're fully covered with insurance wherever there is insurance, and we will try to get you help for that. If we're not, and if we can't help you, I always recommend Tony Atwood's material. Dr. Tony Atwood, he's from New Zealand, and he has a wonderful books, videos, tapes, DVDs, training materials, I mean, you name it. He really, and his expertise is Asperger's and sort of this group of kids, teenagers, young adults, and he does a lot of work in this area. So I really recommend his stuff. I also recommend Peter Gerhardt, Gerhardt, I think, Gerhardt. He is also fabulous with adults, adolescents and adults, and he specializes in, I think, vocational training.
Okay, great resources. We've had the mom of the 20-year-old that we were talking about before
okay, great.
write in some more information, but let's take a break first, then we'll come back and go back to that question, so stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
Talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet, and she's answering your questions live on the show. So we were talking earlier, we had the question, can you guide me to resources for an adult child not diagnosed until after the age of 20, please? And as we were talking about if they haven't been diagnosed till later, you were mentioning that chances are that they have a lot of skills.
Right.
And the mom has written back and said, no, the issues are huge, that the adult child was not diagnosed until then because the professionals we had would not listen and they only treated ADHD, which...
Yeah, it's very sad, those situations. And that's usually, I don't know, one of the... I mean, I find that there are more services and we're a little bit more understanding of these things, I think, in California and perhaps New York, other states. And sometimes when you're like looking at more Midwest states or where there really are very little services, then professionals don't have a very good understanding. What am I talking about? I was in Arizona and I was shocked when I was looking at some physicians or teaching some physicians, and they really knew nothing about autism, nothing at all. I mean, they were asking me what are self-stimulatory behaviors, shocking stuff. So I'm just, it breaks my heart when I hear things like that. You really, and when the issues become that huge, I do really recommend professional help.
Yeah.
I don't think, it's just so difficult. Even when our kids are little, Shannon, it's hard to take control of all their issues. But once you have someone who's in their 20s, the patterns are ingrained. It's so much harder to teach. It's just so much harder to change behavior at that point. I really do recommend professional help. And of course, having said that, it is harder.
Yeah.
I mean, there are many services for young kids and not so many for older kids. We do provide services for adults. And as I said, some of the, the experts, I would say, in this field, Tony Atwood's work is fabulous. I don't know where Peter Gerhardt is right now, but if he's anywhere that you can access, he's where I would go.
Okay. And I want to point out, too, that I so appreciate you saying how difficult it is, because all of the problems that you have with a younger child are so exacerbated when they're older.
Oh, yeah.
But, and the importance of getting professional help, but I also want to remind everybody that when they get that professional help, that there are solutions and things and progress still can be made at that point,
right.
Correct?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, these techniques, they don't expire at a certain age.
Right.
Yeah, these are techniques that work on human behavior, and there's no question. It's just, I'm shocked personally, because sometimes now I get involved with kids who are like in their 20s.
Yeah.
Right? I call them kids, but my young adults, and they are like spectacular. They're just amazing.
Yeah.
Like so much nicer than any other. I mean, you can see that what they have learned from ABA over the years, and these are individuals who've probably had a lot of ABA early on. And I still to this day I have parents are resistant. Parents of older kids are resistant to us doing any kind of discrete trial, because back then, when they received discrete trial, what they received was not quality discrete trial. It was rote, and it never really got the individual to a point where that it would be useful. It's just that simple. So, but when I explain to them that this is just a technique, allow me to do this because this individual has learned, and I have a lot of kids like this now, that we have a lot of older individuals or adults. They're awesome human beings. They don't have behavior problems. I mean, clearly they're just great. They have behavior problems when they're really frustrated and no one's listening to them in any way. Otherwise, they're the most polite, gentle human beings you'd ever meet.
Yeah.
It's just no one listens to what they're asking for. No one pays attention, and no one realizes that, you know, from their perspective, what you're saying doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to play fair when it comes to individuals that are like adults, because they've already gone through a lot and they've developed patterns in order to survive.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
And I appreciate too, you know, not only is it important to get the professionals in because you're going to get it done more effectively, more efficiently, but at that point, the parent has been through so much too.
Absolutely.
And you've got so much emotional baggage, and you've been let down by the system so many times.
It's so true.
that you need somebody to come in and forge the path so that you can follow along.
It's so true. And I do have parents who, I know that the reason they're hugely involved is because they just don't trust anyone anymore. And it's like, I don't understand how in this field, you know, there's so much just separation in this field. I mean, like if you are a psychologist, I mean, forget about the fact that ABA came into the world many years ago and is supposed to be focused on these types of issues, but you know, if you're a psychologist, how can you not understand what a lot of our adults or kids are going through? And I think part of it is because there's this division between sort of psychology and then behavior analysis. And so you're either behavioral or you're cognitive. And why you can't see people from both perspectives as well as medical, you know, like see all of it together, I don't get it. Why does it have to be one or the other?
But frankly, Dr. Grandpichet, that's why we need you. And that's why you are a visionary, because I think that not only do you see it from all those perspectives, but you also take the parent's perspective and you take the kid's perspective. I have seen you interact with different individuals at different ages, and I'm welling up here because that is what you do. I think that is, you have so many skills, but I think that is a brilliant skill that I want to learn more about how you take perspective.
Well, I mean, thanks, Shannon. I appreciate that, but I know that that's natural for me. I can't understand how my kids see the world unless I try to see it from their perspective.
Wow.
And it's hard. Once you do see it from their perspective, it completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh my God, now I get it, why this didn't make any sense.
Right.
That's why I love like hearing what my recovered kids have to say.
Yeah.
And like reading what Temple has written, because it just gives you a whole different understanding of what they're going through.
You're right. It starts to make sense.
It makes perfect sense.
It puts it in context that you go, well, I can completely get that. It doesn't seem odd or weird, the behavior that they were engaging in that seemed odd and weird before. And
it doesn't seem what's the word, oppositional.
Yeah.
For instance, like, you know how Andy always tells me like that he used to hear voices in the background, language sounds were not as loud as things like doors creaking or whatever.
Right.
And if something as simple as that just makes you completely understand why the kids are focused on stimuli they shouldn't be, you know, and why they're not focused on language, for instance.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that. Whereas if you don't really think of it in that way, as a behaviorist, you would think their hearing is fine. Why aren't they paying attention to language? Right. It's an oppositional or it's an escape maintained behavior. Like maybe he's just ignoring me. That's not the point, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting when you really learn all the ins and outs. And that a big part of being able to understand things from the perspective of our kids is the sensory. If you don't, and I still don't even come close to, I never would claim that I understand all the sensory issues our kids go through. There are so many, and I can't even begin to understand, but I know that some of my kids can't focus. I know some of my kids can't see moving objects. I know some of my kids can't hear various sounds well. I know that some of my kids constantly need pressure or something on their skin in order to calm them down. I mean, there are a lot of sensory things going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great, great information. We're going to take another short break and come back right after these messages. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to this particular segment called Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us Dr. Doreen Grampichet, who is an expert in the field of autism, but also a visionary.
Thank you
we
very much.
so appreciate all of your insights that help us to be able to do the things that we want to do with the individuals who are on the spectrum in our lives. And we had a question come in on the live feature. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, you both look great today. Flattery will get you everywhere. Quick question. For a child age 6, what would be the dosage for tranquil sleep when given at nighttime? Like to have an idea. Thank you so much. You are the best.
Tranquil sleep comes in 3 milligram tablets that are chewable, and age 6, it depends. 3 milligrams is depends on your child's body weight, really.
Okay.
So if it's a typical 6-year-old, I'd probably start with half of that, break 1 and a half.
Okay.
And then you can work it up from there. But I mean, it's not as an adult, I can take 6 milligrams, so I could take 2. But then, some 6-year-olds are pretty big and they don't have, so like when my kids were 6, I guess 1 tablet would have been okay for them.
Okay.
But I mean, melatonin is a relatively harmless thing. And I would say you're looking at 1 to 3 milligrams for a 6-year-old.
Okay, great. We've got a couple of different questions about emotions and teaching emotions to our kids. One to start about teaching them how to express. How do you get your child to show his emotions whenever he's upset and not express his emotions from a movie?
Yeah, I have to think about that a little bit, because first of all, I don't know enough, I don't know how much your child has already gotten ingrained in the whole movie thing. Sometimes our kids get into scripting. Basically, they'll be watching movies and then they'll take language from the movie and use it. And it becomes so, I guess, overly, just takes over a lot of their language, because they pretend to be in the movie and then they use mostly scripting, and that becomes a little bit hard to break. If that has actually happened, you need to cut down on the movies for a little while just to reduce that from happening. And then there's our emotion lessons are, oh my gosh, it's one of our largest social lessons, and I would say there's maybe 20 different lessons involved in just teaching expression of emotion. And so it'll start from very basic recognition of emotional features and recognition of emotion based on scenarios or settings, and then appropriate ways to express, which are many, and different. So if it's let's say a male, their expression of emotion will be quite different than a female, and so on and so forth. So there's too much for me to want to describe here, but it is very doable, absolutely. You just have to teach the child step by step. And like anything else in ABA, what you're really trying to do is prevent one response and replace it with another. So I guess what I'm saying is, in order to prevent the scripting, just cut down on the movies for a little while, and then teach the appropriate types of expression, some of which are scripted. I mean, some of it is language when you express. If you do use Skills, our online program, and if you go in there, you'll see there's one of the charts which kind of lists all the exemplars, and this is like all the different ways to express emotion in reaction to different things. So all the different ways to express sadness, happiness, etc., etc. Then you have to find different ones that are appropriate, that you feel are appropriate to your child's age and gender and so on, and then you will teach those. And it's not very hard to replace one type of response for another.
Okay, so slowly, systematically, and all those lessons are in Skills.
Yeah, they are all in Skills, and it would be very hard for me to try to tell you, because I don't know what emotion, I don't know the age of your child, the gender, I don't know how much language they have, I don't know, but Skills would be able to take you through all that.
Okay, cool. Now, this other question that we had about emotion, it's a lengthy one, so I'm going to cut some parts of it. Is there a way to teach embarrassment to a 10-year-old on the spectrum? She goes on to say, I have a 10-year-old who seems to understand my emotions but still does not feel embarrassed. She gives an example of when he's walking up to school and that he will walk in a way that would attract attention, and that for another child not on the spectrum, kids would make fun of, and then they would feel embarrassed. And she's trying to change the way that he's walking up to the school. She prompts him and makes him go back and do it over again. She's wondering if that's the right way. She goes on to say, I'm wondering if the consequence I'm providing is the right direction. Should I always be priming him about his behavior? And again, is it really possible to teach embarrassment? And she goes on to thank you very much. She's watching and using Skills.
Oh, wonderful. Good. That's great. So yes, it is very possible to teach embarrassment, but I don't think your child is making the connection just from hearing what you wrote here. Because embarrassment has to do with, if you think about what embarrassment has to do with not liking how other people think about you. That's what causes embarrassment.
Okay.
So embarrassment naturally involves perspective taking. It has to. If you don't have the ability to take other people's perspectives, you will never be embarrassed. Because you could go out without any clothes on and you wouldn't care, because from your perspective, everything's fine.
Right.
Okay. So embarrassment comes with theory of mind. You have to have perspective taking. And this scenario, I think the way walking to school and making certain noises or sounds or whatever to behaviors that attract attention, I don't think the child is understanding that this is embarrassing. Okay. Now, he could possibly, and I don't know the child well enough, he or she could potentially, and what you would do is videotape the behavior to going to school, and maybe even videotape other children reacting to it, and then show the video at home and talk to your child and say, look, did you see what you did? And look at what they're doing. Why do you think they're doing? Why do you think they're laughing? They're laughing because it sounds funny. It isn't normal. It isn't good. You shouldn't make these sounds. I don't think they want to be friends, that kind of thing. But that would only apply if your child was already at a stage of development where they cared about having friends and looking good. If your child isn't there, then that's not the right way to go.
Okay.
So it's just not going to make any sense, because then to your child, it just won't make any sense. Like, who cares how they're reacting and so on? So then I would back off. And for this particular scenario, I would just say no noises or no whatever. I would just make it very basic and say, I don't want you doing any of this. So the connection that you make, like let's say, sometimes we tell our kids, you have to, I don't know, go to sleep at a certain time. Okay, and that is very personal, and there's no real rule about whether you have to sleep at 8 or 10.
Right.
There isn't, right? I mean, but we make these rules. We say 8, 8:30, 7:30, you have to be in bed, whatever. They're rules.
Yeah.
And so just make a rule in terms of when we walk to school, it has to be quiet.
Okay.
You could do a lot of things to make that happen. Obviously, you could play music in headphones. You could help teach the child to count in his head. You could teach the child to make noises in his head, like making noises inside versus outside is something we do as well.
Yeah.
So there's all that sort of stuff which could control the behavior for that period of time. And you're not really approaching the whole area of embarrassment, unless your child really is, coming home sad and saying, I don't know why anybody wants to be friends with me, I don't have friends and all this. Then you really do want to approach that, and then you do want to say it has to do with how you behave.
Yeah.
And look at how you behave.
And it sounded like she really would like for him, I don't think it's just about the behavior, that she would like for him to understand embarrassment and be able to apply this to other circumstances.
Right.
And so to answer her question about can you teach it?
He might, absolutely you can, but then you have to go back and make sure he understands perspective taking.
So start there.
All of cognition, like the theory of mind, perspectives, sensory perspectives, remember those lessons?
Oh, yes.
All have to precede this.
Some of those lessons were really fun. We had a good time with them.
They're fun, but they're long and they're difficult. So you do have to teach the child, all the different perspective lessons. I'm trying to go through my head right now. So senses, sensory perspectives, thinking, knowing, beliefs, desires, intentions, all that sort of stuff.
And she's using skills, so she's got access to all of those. Now, I would say as a parent, because I remember the day that my child for the first time felt embarrassment. And I was there, and he was in kindergarten, and a moment happened, something happened, he said something. The teacher had said, we're going to have a holiday party at kindergarten, and everybody can wear, put on your holiday dress, was what she said. And she was meaning, dress like what everybody is dressing in. And my son, who was trying to acquire language, said, oh, I have a holiday dress that I want to wear, misunderstanding the word dress in that context. And all of the little boys started laughing and pointing at him. And he turned red, and he turned to the teacher, and he said, they're not laughing with me, they're laughing at me.
Oh.
And it was this moment panicked, right? And the teacher dealt with it, best teacher in the world, dealt with it, and then sent them out to the playground. And I was crying. And she came up to me and she said, "I'm so sorry, and he's okay." And I said, "No, I'm crying because he felt embarrassment."
Yeah, it was
there was a huge, huge leap for him. But but there was also a part of me that I said, now we have to double down on how he deals with embarrassment. You were always and still are very, just like, you understand him so well, and you're so aware of his issues. I don't know about that.
You are, and that is what makes our kids successful. Because as a mom, and that's how I do it too with my kids. I'm constantly trying to figure out, like, okay, and that what you said is so true. The minute our kids become aware of certain things around them, then you really have to work on their self-esteem issues, being able to handle losing, being able to handle all of that sort of stuff, So it does come naturally, and giving them some stuff to fall back on and some support is also very important. So going back to this mom, I would say, don't go to embarrassment yet. Trust me, it will come. When your child has adequate perspective taking and theory of mind ability, they will feel embarrassed when the time comes.
And then you'll have other things to teach.
And then you'll have to teach them to not be embarrassed.
Yeah. But we are out of time, unfortunately. And if you guys, and I know there are many questions that we didn't get to, but we'll continue to answer them, next week. And there might be a few that we can get some of our other experts to attack a little later on in the week. But I thank you so much for being here.
Always a pleasure.
It is our pleasure. And again, continue to write in your questions. It's great when we get them a little bit in advance. It's really helpful. We are going to take a break right now and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, as he began his ABA therapy. And now at this point, he is 4. He started when he was 2. He's 4. He started preschool. And this little boy is taking on the world in a big way. So take a look. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Exciting. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Okay, Jack Riley, can you tell me? And when you're calm and nice, that makes everybody happy. And what are the pictures in this one?
Not calm, mean.
Mean. And when you're not calm and you're mean, that makes everybody sad. And when you're calm and nice to Lainey, you get to have special stickers put on your day. And when you get enough stickers, you get to have what?
Cereal ball.
So with a lot of our kids, sometimes they have trouble dealing with certain situations or changes. Diana wanted us to do is write a social story about being nice to Lainey, things you can do with Lainey Grace besides push her. The results of it is he's happy, Lainey Grace is happy, mom and dad are happy, therefore making him happy. And he gets the happy points on the chart. And we're supposed to write it in words that they understand. So it's pretty much we're going to be writing it together.
I made a sticker to play.
What should our story be called, Jack Riley? Should it be called Being Nice to Lainey Grace?
Yeah, that's the one you picked.
Or should it be called Lainey Grace, My Little Sister? What should it be called?
Lainey Grace and My Little Sister.
Okay, that's a good one. All right. What about your little sister? Do you love Lainey?
Yeah.
Okay. When she cries, how does that make you feel?
Sad.
Makes you feel sad. What are things you can do to make Lainey happy again?
Kiss her.
Kiss her? Okay. That's a good one. So when Lainey cries, it makes me sad. I can give her... Let's read it together, okay?
Lainey Grace is my little sister. I love her very much. Lainey Grace.
Does that sound like a good story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. You walked by Lainey doing a nice job. High five. Let's go put on a happy point. Woo! Let's
Way to go. That was a happy point, buddy.
Go get a happy point. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Happy point. Oh, this way.
So what the heck is a happy point?
A happy point is we've decided that
Jack's aggressiveness with his sister is not being curbed by punishment, so we decided to really try to catch him being good, and that is where the happy point derives from. Good point here, good example.
Good being nice.
That's a happy point. I don't even need to explain much more, do I? Well, so we're trying to teach him the good behavior, and you can't ignore the bad behavior. As you like, when he's aggressive with me, I try to ignore it so he doesn't get attention from it. But with her, obviously, she can be injured. So we're trying to curb that by making him feel really good when he's not aggressive towards her. And I think we're having a little success, and I think we need patience because it's going to be gradual. But you just saw a good example of what we're hoping will happen more, and then eventually less.
So he earned his cereal bar.
He earned a cereal bar! Good God! Can I leave now? I gotta get my son a cereal bar. Okay.
Can I talk about how much I love this family? You just watched a segment from the A Word, and this is an amazing family that, while they were in the midst of what are we going to do and how are we going to do this, agreed for a very long haul, not only to have their child have ABA intervention, which we hope that everyone can get access to, but to have it videotaped, and that was a very brave thing to do. So I just, my hat's off to this family, and I'm starting to get to know them, and they're amazing, both on camera and off camera. I mentioned before that we went to the zoo last week, and my son and I went, and Mike, the dad from the A Word, came, and Jack Riley came, and Jessica, the therapist, came with us, and it was an amazing. We took our crew and went around and did different things at the zoo, and it was really amazing to see my son and Jack Riley together and interacting. And you get a bead, you go someplace and you see how people parent, and this is a really awesome dad, and it's an awesome mom too, but an amazing, amazing family. I really love how in this video he's talking about this really difficult thing to do about reward the good behavior and ignore the bad behavior. And that's a really simplistic way of looking at it, and it's much more involved than that, of course, but early on that was on our bathroom mirror because I couldn't remember it on a daily basis. So we put it up on our bathroom, reward the good behavior and ignore the bad behavior. It was so ingrained in me from my upbringing that if somebody did something, and you're the parent, you're supposed to be on them and let them know that's not the way we do it. But we know that sometimes behavior has an attention component to it, and that people will engage in bad behavior to get attention. And especially with our kids on the autism spectrum, we want to minimize that and not have behaviors happening because we fed it attention. And it was it's like a new toy when we really get this concept of, oh, okay, wait a second, I'm going to put all of my attention into rewarding good behavior. I'm not going to ignore the child, but when certain behaviors happen, I am not going to give them attention. And it's amazing what happens because other people will freak out. Your mother-in-law, your mother, your relatives, your aunts, your uncles, your sisters and brothers will freak out and go, you need to do something about that, right? And you have to be able to maintain, no, this is something, and I like to think of it as a little science experiment, this little science experiment that we're going to do to see if we can change behavior. Not police behavior, can we change behavior? And what you'll see very quickly is if you give enough attention to the good behaviors and you don't attend, and obviously we're not talking about all behaviors. So if the child is being self-injurious, we want to make sure that we don't ignore to the point that we just allow it to happen, right? That's why I say we don't ignore the child, but we don't give attention to the behavior. So you've seen parents doing this kind of thing where when somebody is hitting something, they just simply take, the hammer that they're using to take away, but there's no discussion about it whatsoever, right? So it's a fine art, and it takes some practice, and it really takes somebody being very aware of what they're doing. But when we don't give it the attention, we see that those behaviors start to diminish and go away. My husband and I should have it back up on the mirror because it's tough to remember. Instinctively, I have that desire to whop at my son when he's doing things instead of picking and choosing my battles, rewarding the good behavior, and letting some behaviors that might be attention maintained just go away. Like they came, it went, nothing happened. Really, really tough, but I encourage you to watch ahead as you see how Jack Riley's behavior changes as a result of the parents really getting this concept. It was one of the things that we talked about actually at the zoo, that at one point the dad said, he said, you know, it took me a really long time. And I said, are you kidding me? You got it in under 2 years. That's not a really long time. It took us at least that long, my husband and I, before we really started to get it. So, we're learning right alongside our kids. And by the way, watch the A Word in its entirety. You can go back and watch the early episodes and watch all the way through that you can see Jack Riley is about to be 5 now. Amazing, amazing little boy, and talks like a dream. It's very exciting for me to see. We are going to start Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy in just a few minutes, so stick with us, and we'll be joined by Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
Ready, guys? There you go. And action.
This is the second year of our Act Today for Military Families Inclusion Film Camp, led by Joey Travolta with our fabulous partners, Cox Communications.
One of the wonderful things about this camp is that it allows these children to have a voice that they otherwise would not have. And it is a story of how lives can be transformed, new friends can be found, and they can excel in the right kind of learning environment.
Quiet on the set is a term we use when we need quiet. Filmmaking is about communication, and if everybody's talking over each other, you can't communicate. Everything that has to do with filmmaking goes into everyday life. So we use filmmaking as a vehicle to teach them to work together as a team and give them social skills and confidence.
What if we try something different and see if we like it better or not?
What about ghosts?
You want to try ghosts?
Yes! Yeah!
These kids, they all make a film from conception through the writing process, developing their own ideas. Then we write the script, we cast it, shoot it, edit it. At the end of the day, we end up with a realized project.
All right.
With kids on the autism spectrum, you never know what you're going to get. There's a lot of unpredictability, and so our staff is there to help provide sort of a comfort, a sense of ease, to try to be flexible within the inclusion film camp, because they're asking the kids to do a lot of things that they may be uncomfortable doing or that might be new to them.
Film is reality. It's what we do every day, right? And I'm realistically talking to you. And I'm having a conversation about cinema, which we all love. That's why we're here at this film camp.
The theme this year is the Inclusion Network. So what it is, it's like a TV network. So we have TV shows, we have movies, there'll be little news segments, we have TV commercials. They came up with some really great ideas.
Hey, here comes Joey to hear the pitch today. Hey, how's it going? I'm sorry. Molly, I'm Joey. Nice to meet you. So explain the idea.
Our movie is about a corporation, and the 4 main characters, Fury, Death, War, and Strife, are former employees.
You know what? If someone came in and said their name was Fury or Death or Strife, that would send up a red flag right away. It's probably why they're not working anymore. Go ahead. Exciting thing about this collaboration, you have the core, which is Act Today for the military, which is how this whole thing started, and then the support of Cox Communication, because we didn't know whether we would be able to do this again this year. But they band together, they saw the importance of the program, and they're able to really have something special for the community. I mean, this being in the San Diego Film Festival as a special screening is huge. Okay, let's have John come out there. Come on, John.
John loves this camp. It really gives him the hands-on time to work and to be among kids who have his interests.
John, how was this experience as you came all the way from Oregon to be in our film camp? Awesome.
Michael happens to love making films, and he was so excited, and we saw a difference from day one. Michael, you want to say something about what this?
Did you love the camp?
Yes, I did very much.
I'm so glad you were able to do it this year. Would you come back next year?
Yes, I believe yes.
And how was your experience this year at film camp, Mackenzie?
It was very, very rewarding. I thought it was a great experience, and I hope to do it again next year.
Last year after attending this camp, my son Mackenzie spoke in front of a group for the first time, and that was at school. And his teacher was so excited that she cried and then emailed me to tell me about it. So it was exciting. It's just one of those things that we've all gone through together. His growth has been phenomenal.
When you look at the challenges that occur when you have a special needs child in a family, but then you add on the military component of a deployed parent or relocation and the challenges that come with that, then it just starts to exasperate. And so if there's one space, one way that we can help a family here that belongs to the military, then we really can help change a life.
How many of you are military families? Raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do for our country. And we are there to help your kids. We'll be back next year. And I want to say that if they were casting a movie about superheroes, all of you would be the stars. You're all heroic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and I am Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm a very tired Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
Yes, tell our viewers why, what you had going on last night.
My son did not sleep one wink, and when I mean one wink, I mean the eyes did not shut the entire night. What the heck is with that? Has anybody else had this problem? I had it when he was younger. And yes. You had it with Jem.
Jem wouldn't go to sleep until really late, sometimes 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we'd be driving him around the block endlessly. But a lot of our viewers have written in and said, there are sometimes people write in and say, I'm in hour 48, that my child has not slept, and that it's just this thing that happens from time to time.
Yes, and we're having it about a month, every month now, or twice a month, that he stays up really late. This is the first night he's gone on an all-nighter.
Yeah.
And today was picture day at school, which, you know, is fine, but because he is wound.
Yeah.
I mean, he was up all night. We were making up stories about his pirate friend Josie, who's his new imaginary friend, and I told more Josie stories than I can even. So anyway, at 8 o'clock after we got him off to school, I begged my husband to drive him the half hour to school. And I said, let me sleep for a little, please. I'll set the alarm, but please don't let me sleep past 10. I've got to, you know, do the webcast. So at 10:30, Shannon, at 10:30, I roll over and look at the clock. Hello. It's a little after 11 now. I get dressed really fast, but, you know, driving down the freeway, not good. Texting you guys, doing my mascara. Anyway, so if anybody has melatonin, yes, we do it. We do it every night. It's always worked. I can only say it must be hormones because nothing's changed. 11 going on 12.
I don't know. That frightens me a little bit.
It more than frightens me. It terrifies me. I feel like I have a future of sleepless nights. But whatever.
I could not come in and look the way that you look after being up all night long. And if you woke me up a half an hour before I was supposed to be here, forget it. It wouldn't. I could not have pulled it together the way you have. So.
Well, Reed's like, don't worry about it. Just call Shannon. She'll do the show herself. I'm like, no. But you know me. I love doing this, and it gives me a sense of normalcy, despite all the insanity in the world of autism. And so, anyway, here we are.
Here we are, and lots of news.
There's so much in the news that some of it we're going to save till next week. But okay, we've been covering the story of the young man with Down syndrome. Now this, I have to admit a bias here. My brother David was Down syndrome. He died at the age of 38 in 1994. And when I saw the picture of this young man, I mean, instantly the tears sprang up because he looked a lot like David did as an adult.
There he is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, look at the child. Look at him. He looks sweet as can be. And we know Down syndrome kids, right?
Yeah.
We know them. There's not a violent bone in their body, okay? Now, he had some obsessions, apparently, and he went to see the movie. He was 26 years old. He was with his caregiver. He went into 0 Dark 30. When it was over, he left the theater, he came back, and he asked to see it again. The manager called security, and 3 off-duty deputies moonlighting at the mall came in to confront him. He swore at them, refused to leave. This is according to police statements.
And we should say that he had an aide with him, but he or she had gone to get the car at the garage. So there was a very short period of time that he was standing there, and there wasn't. That's my understanding of it.
Yes,
that he
very
was
short
standing
period
there
of time.
and nobody was supervising him
But
directly.
what really concerns me is they tried to remove him despite the caregiver was back.
By that point,
she said, "Let me handle it."
Okay, see, that wasn't originally
Yes, that's in the story.
Okay.
And let her take care of it. And then what happened next is a little unclear, but witnesses say they saw the deputies put him on the floor, hold him down, handcuff him, and he was called Ethan by his family. He suffered a fracture in his throat cartilage, and he died of asphyxiation. The death was ruled a homicide, but a grand jury failed to indict the deputies. They returned to work without charges, nothing. So this was written, this blog was written called Justin for Down Syndrome Man. And the man who wrote it, David M. Perry, who's a professor of history at Dominican University, has a Down syndrome son. And he said, "I've been following this case closely. For months it seemed as if only people in the disability community cared about it. Petitions for independent investigations sputtered out. Local reporting never made a splash in the national media. Meanwhile, the Frederick County Sheriff investigated his misconduct, ruled the procedure closely followed, and moved on. Public violence against people with disabilities is not uncommon," he goes on to write, "but the cases don't seem to get a lot of publicity. Most people see the disabled as best passive victims, objects to care for, maybe sometimes to love, but not people with whom we automatically identify. This is a mistake. We are only temporarily able-bodied. Accidents, illness, and age await all of us. What happened to Ethan Saylor could have happened to you." And he goes on to say that this past July, his death got more attention. A member of the House of Representatives in Maryland and a candidate for governor seized on the story, called for new training for law enforcement.
Yeah.
This is what we hope for, something good rising from the ashes of something horrible. And then a woman, an investigative journalist in Washington, started a petition and asking Governor Martin O'Malley to investigate. It went viral in mid-August, garnered 300,000 signatures in 1 week, and suddenly a new national attention came to this. And Ethan Saylor and hashtag Justice for Ethan are now an official cause. So now there will be probably an investigation by the Justice Department or a civil lawsuit. But what we need to understand is that violence in this kind of case, where there was a caregiver and where there were other alternatives, clearly this young man was not a threat. Clearly he was not armed. Clearly he was not going to overtake 3 police officers. And what he's saying, the tragedy raises questions about how people with disabilities fit into society. Would it have been reasonable to let Sailor watch the movie for free?
Yeah.
Would it have been reasonable to try to talk it out for 10 minutes with the aide? Maybe delay the start of the movie. Who would have known? Would it have been reasonable to bar admission to people with disabilities? So he's saying, just remember that in this case, you and I might be one of the so-called disabled one day.
Yeah.
And a victim as well.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. But I also want to reiterate, though, too, that even and every time that we've talked about this, I don't think anyone thinks that the 3 individuals who were handcuffing him, that their intent was to kill him. I think that a lot of times, and I don't know if you've experienced this with your child, that there are people who think, well, this is the way we do things, and this is just how I react without thought to what it may mean to other people around them. I don't think it was their intent to do any long-term harm to him, but the realization that you don't necessarily know better, that if there is a caregiver saying, please don't do that. I think of a couple of instances with my son who tends to be, if you touch him with much pressure, it is painful to him.
Right.
And there have been times that he has said, somebody hurt me, and their reaction is, no, I touch everybody that way.
Yes.
Well, we know that some people, if you touch them if you touched an old person that way, it would leave a bruise. This assumption that everybody is the same needs to be eradicated. And for these 3 individuals, I am sure that they feel badly about what they find out.
Oh, I'm sure they do. But what I think it shows us we need new understanding.
Yes.
When it comes to dealing with the disabled.
Yes.
And we need to have a much more cautious approach.
Yes.
As opposed to, I'm the law, this is what you do, and you do it my way.
Right. That one channel thinking.
Yeah.
That hopefully they're going to get the proper training, and not just to these 3 individuals, but to everyone who interacts with the public.
And something hopefully good will rise from the ashes of this horrible tragedy.
I hope so too. I absolutely hope so.
Okay.
So we've got other news in the story. Do you want to take a break and talk about or you want to keep going?
Let's first just cover a nice story.
Okay. Leave us on a happy note.
Yeah, the stranger that pays for a special family's dinner. Did you hear about this one?
You brought this to my attention, so I'm going to let you take the lead.
All right, a North Carolina family, my home state, where I was born. I'm a Tar Heel girl. There was a situation where a family went to a dinner at a restaurant, and one of the sons started to get frustrated and angry. Now, he suffers from epilepsy and is nonverbal. It did not say whether he was autistic, but it sounded to me like he was on the autism spectrum, but one can only surmise. So he has a hard time communicating. He started, he couldn't get the Netflix on his mom's work phone to work, which was obviously the way they keep him busy during dinners. He started to scream and act out and beating on the table, and it caught the attention of other customers who were giving the dirty looks, and the family, the mom said it was the worst experience she'd ever had at a family meal, because it just got totally out of control. And we've all been there, right?
Yes.
I remember at that time when Wyatt cleared the entire table at the Newport Rib Company. It just went wipe everything on the floor, and everybody in the restaurant's staring at you, okay?
Yeah. And you want to crawl. I mean, you feel bad, and their stairs aren't helping you.
Right. So she said it had been one of the worst weeks ever in Riley's behavior anyway. And so as they were delivering the food, another waitress came up, and she had tears in her eyes, and she said, I want you to know your meal, and this was the great-grandmother, Riley's brother, Jason, the husband, the mom, and another little boy, Logan. The note said, and I think Emily has the note, it said, you don't have the note. Okay, I will read it. It's very short. Your meal's been paid for, and he wanted me to give you this note. That's what the waitress said. The note said, God only gives special children to special people. Thank you.
What a lovely thing.
She just broke down and cried, and she said she hopes to meet him, and she wrote on her Facebook, "Dear stranger, thank you for giving me a blessing tonight in a way you will never know."
Yeah.
Nice story.
Absolutely beautiful. And,
Right.
and when people ask about, I don't know how to behave when something like that is happening, well, here's a great example of a way to behave. Do
Compassion.
something nice and compassion. Yes, we love compassion.
Right. So you want to take a break and we'll come back to my...
Well, we have a guest.
Oh, we have a guest. So do you want to take this one story? Do you want to do this one story?
Why don't we take a break, come back, have our guest on, and then we'll find some time for In the News. And we promised that Nancy was going to talk about this letter on the Huffington Post, because we so enjoy it when we watch Nancy, the top of her head comes off and steam
I get a little
rises.
angry. It's that old rebel hippie.
No, we love it.
Okay.
We love it. You're a rebel, and we love that.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have a very special guest who's joining us from LA Parent Magazine. Elena Epstein will be with us, so stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Granpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some gases.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have a very special guest who is joining us live in the studio. We have Elena Epstein, and you are from LA Parent Magazine, but you're the director of content for a new magazine. Tell us what you brought here and what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. LA Parent Magazine has launched Your Child with Special Needs, which is, as of now, it's an annual print publication that came out this spring. But the response from the families was so tremendous that August 1st, we launched Your Child with Special Needs Monthly, which is an e-newsletter that comes out every month, and it features 3 stories on special programs in LA. We just did our September issue, just came out last night. And it has these great stories about a great ballet program for kids with all abilities. It has story on celebrities who also have some type of disability and how they're living with it. And we also feature what LA Parent is known for, which is our calendar section, fun things to do in the city, but it's all for special needs events. Walks, fun events, all the things that are happening that month, we feature in the newsletter. So it's an exciting addition to the LA Parent family.
What a great resource.
It really is.
How can people sign up to get the newsletter?
It's very easy and it's absolutely free. You just go on laparent.com and you'll see a special icon that says Your Child with Special Needs. Click on it. Send us your email and you're on our mailing list, and you will get the newsletter once a month.
And to get a listing into the calendar for an event that, for example, at Autism Care and Treatment Today, the nonprofit that I'm executive director of, if we had an event, how would I get that in the calendar?
Exactly. You go on laparent.com and there's submit information for the calendar, and you fill out all the information and it comes directly to our editor.
Great.
And we'll go through it. We make sure all the events, the information was put in right, and if we have any questions, we'll contact you. And then we put it on our online calendar, which will be there the whole entire month. And then at the beginning of every month, we send out the newsletter that has the stories in addition to the calendar.
Fantastic.
So, but at any time, parents were looking for something to do that weekend, you can go on laparent.com, and we have a special needs section that you can click on and see all the events listed there.
What a great resource.
I know. And go ahead, Shannon.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to go into depth and talk about some of the stories and some of the response that you've had for this wonderful resource.
Thank you.
So stick with us. We'll be back after these messages. We are here at Dodger Stadium. We happen to be here on Autism Awareness Day. We can't wait to meet, greet, and see all the wonderful people that are here and take part in this.
I don't care if we never get
We're here with the beautiful and lovely Holly Robinson Pete, who's getting ready to sing the national anthem here. Are you excited about singing this?
I am excited, but I am a little nervous.
The whole family's here, I see.
Yes, words of encouragement from my 8-year-old, Mom, don't fail.
We are here with the fabulous, funny, and talented George Lopez. And you're throwing out what?
I'm throwing out the first pitch, and Holly is singing, so it's a good night.
You see by the dawn's early light.
Who are you here with?
My amazing son, Lukey, who is my inspiration to do what we do every day. And Autism Speaks is just a wonderful supporter, and we're glad we're here, part of this joyous celebration. And it's really exciting to watch his excitement.
What is your son's name?
Christian.
Christian. Are you having a good time?
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to sign your baseball?
St. Matt Camp.
Kim.
My daughter Megan, who's 11 and was diagnosed with autism at 2, is going to take the field with Puig. Woo!
You're going to be beside yourself.
I'm thrilled. I am so excited that all these people are here for autism awareness. It's amazing.
Forest 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, our very special guest in the studio with us from LA Parent Magazine. But this new feature that you guys have, the special needs, Your Child with Special Needs, what a wonderful resource. And we were just talking with you, we wanted to go a little bit more in depth about this spectacular magazine. So what made you guys decide to do this?
Well, LA Parent, as you know, has been writing about families and kids for 33 years. So we've been a part of LA for 3 decades and writing about all the issues that parents face every day raising kids. And we really try to listen to our families and try to meet their needs of what they want to see more of. And one of the things that we kept hearing is, what about kids with special needs? What about programs? Because as you know, one of the things that parents face when they have a child with special needs is what do I do? Where do I go? How do I meet people? And that's what we want to try to address. We want to give them the resources. Like one of the things we found, like mom groups, that's one of the, as you become a new mom, we know that that's one of the best things you could ever do for yourself is find another group of moms so you can talk about not sleeping and not eating, and they all understand what our craziness
Misery
is like.
loves company.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What is that sort of thing? You like to know, okay, I'm not the only person.
I'm not the
It makes you feel a little more normal.
Feeling not
amongst all
alone.
the
And
crazy-
support groups are so crucial, and there's so many in the special needs community.
So many.
Yeah.
And we're learning, and that's one of the things we really encourage our readers and anybody we meet. We're like, please email us, please call us, tell us about a great group. Like we found out there's this wonderful group of moms in South Pasadena who get together and they have swim parties and they have barbecues and they're so involved in the school. And if somebody needs a resource, they're there.
Well, mentoring on things like individual education plans. It's always nice to have a parent to tell you. I have to say that every step of the way on my autism journey, it was another parent who told me, oh, no, you need to do this. You need to be aware of this next. And, if not for those muses of mine, those, women that had gone before me, my journey would have been considerably harder. And I know you feel the same way.
Thing.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would be if we hadn't had people, angels, walk into our life and say, hey, here's who you have to call, here's how you have to do it. And we're always trying to pay that forward, the help that we got.
And you had, in this first edition, you had special animal articles, Canine Companions, and how horses heal, and an interesting story. I have 2 horses. We live in the equestrian community of Hidden Hills. We have 2.5 because we have a miniature. And both of my horses are older now, and I don't have much time to take care of them. Although one of them, a big, beautiful paint horse named Big Moon, we have Big Moon and Mini Moon because he looks just like him. My son has been riding since he's been about a year old. And at Stephanie's Day, where you had a booth, I picked this up, I opened it, and I opened it to Shadow Hills Riding Club. Shadow Hills Riding Club now has one of the best programs for autism therapy with horses, equine therapy, as well as wounded warriors. And Johnny Higginson's going to be coming on the show. I spoke with him yesterday. He's coming out to look at my horses to evaluate them for the program. So we may donate one of the horses to the program where my son can then go and take really specialized lessons there. So because of your magazine, see the miracles that happen?
All the different ways that you're connecting people.
I love hearing that. I love hearing, and that's where this photo was taken.
That's Johnny's son.
That's Johnny's son and his horse.
And this is Johnny's horse. So so I'm very excited to follow that up. But just so many resources. So we urge all of you out there as a parent, if you're in the LA area, and perhaps this is something that another publication in your area might want to take on, because we reach internationally here on this webcast, but we do have a lot of viewers here. So please take advantage of this resource. It will offer you so many opportunities for your child.
And I just want to say, you said you've gotten a lot of response. What are the viewers saying when they read this wonderful magazine?
I think the biggest thing, like we got a phone call just the other day from a mom who saw somebody had forwarded the newsletter to her. And she said, and I'm not exaggerating, that she was in tears when she saw the newsletter. And when we were at the Autism Speaks walk, that's when we debuted the magazine at the booth, a mom came up to us, same thing. She's like, when I saw the magazine, I had tears in my eyes because suddenly there is a magazine that's just for me. And that sense that you're not forgotten, that, as a mom, you want to know that there are other moms that you can talk to, that there are resources out there for you. And you know, that if something happens at a restaurant or at a museum, like we did a story on Zimmer Children's Museum. They have their open door days where it's just designed for kids with special needs.
Oh, we have to do that.
Yes.
It's a wonderful program, and we did a story on that. And I spoke to one of the moms, and she said when she took her 4-year-old son there, for the first time, one afternoon, for the first time, she felt like a normal mom. That she didn't have to worry that if her son had a tantrum, that people are watching and she's embarrassed. And she's like, you know, I was just like everybody else. I was, you know, and he had a great time. There was no tantrum. He had a wonderful time. So we hear that sense of connection.
Right.
That when they see something like this magazine, with resources, with stories of moms and kids, you know, living their lives and doing, you know, doing regular things and trying to work through every day, like every mom does. We all do. And I think it's that sense of connection that we hear a lot.
When is your October deadline for listings? Because I need to, we're starting a special exceptional families ministry at my church.
That's fantastic.
In Woodland Hills, Prince of Peace. And we're inviting, it's non-denominational, but we're inviting all parents and their children to join us. It's the third Saturday in October. And the children will be able to be in the upper hall playing, or they can come to church with their parents. And if they make noise, if they run around, we don't care.
Oh, I love
and
that.
it's going to be contemporary rock worship and all kinds of things, and a meal afterwards with the family. So I'd love to get that
please.
in.
Send
But
to
when is the
LAparent.com.
deadline?
The deadline is always a week before the first of the month.
Okay, great.
Good.
That's
Got plenty
very
of time.
reasonable.
Yeah.
And so again, if people want to be able, because I can imagine there are families out there that aren't in the LA area that would love to read this, even for the
Absolutely.
message of hope. So where can they go again to sign up for the newsletter?
Yes, you can sign up at laparent.com, and it's free. All we need is your email, and you can live anywhere. You don't have to live in LA to get the email newsletter.
Okay.
So at laparent.com.
Okay.
Wonderful,
Elena,
wonderful resource.
What a great service.
Higher
you.
work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest today.
My pleasure.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with a few more in the news stories, because there was a lot this week. Stay with us.
Riley has high-functioning autism, and I'd say I noticed somewhere between 9 months and a year. Looking back now, I can tell you everything. I mean, there was no pointing, there was no shared experiences, speech was not coming, the interactive play was not coming, those things weren't happening. You know, you go to the pediatrician, they tell you, well, sometimes boys are slow or things might take a while to come along, but it still wasn't happening. And right when he hit the 2-year-old room in preschool is when the wheels fell off the wagon. That's when we got some intervention. That's when we figured out, you know, how are we going to address this problem. The first thing I did was I got a mentor, because there's no book on what to do with your autistic child. I mean, there's many books, but each path is individual. So I got a mentor, a really nice woman named Marlene. She has a daughter with Asperger's, and she told me, go to a psychiatrist so you can have your child fully diagnosed and a rock-solid diagnosis that can't really be attacked. Call CARD and do whatever they tell you to do. That was probably the thing she talked about the most. Get in touch with CARD. She actually put me in touch with Evelyn from CARD, and calling CARD was like amazing, because I really felt like things were finally going to be okay. We were going to get the help we needed.
We tried a number of different things before we could get into CARD, and you could really see the difference in the data keeping, really addressing what his issues were, whereas the other places we had been, it seemed pointless to me.
We've talked about this, and I feel like we met a lot of really nice, well-intentioned people.
Right.
And then when we got to CARD, we met a lot of really nice people who could help us because they had the experience. It was ABA, which I think is the only way to go with your child if you're trying to overcome autism. And if you go to CARD, the people are so qualified, and there's so much of a database on how to approach this. It's just like they come right in, and we started off with, let's have Riley sit down for 2 seconds, because he couldn't even get that. And we worked on baby steps until now he's in 1st grade and he's working at grade level. So it just starts with baby steps, and it keeps working on because they have a way to approach every single problem, every single tantrum, every single thing you're going to come up with. They have a way to approach it and help you get through it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed, like at our clinic, we'll be having a specific problem and how good they are, all of them, the therapist and your team leader, at coming up with a solution, something to try, and it almost always works. Whatever the particular behavior you're trying to deal with, they're really good at them. They know the answers.
He likes a lot of stuff I think regular 7-year-olds like. He likes to swim.
He loves to swim.
He's a fish. Likes to ride a scooter, loves Toy Story, loves playing on the iPad.
Loves
Justin
Bieber.
Thought you all be mine.
Good job, buddy.
High five.
High five.
High five.
Yeah.
CARD's been good about encouraging us to do things that maybe wouldn't occur to us, like him learning to ride a bike was really them saying, hey, it's time, let's do this, and helping us do that. And so he can ride a bike. He's still working on the brakes a little bit, but you know, he can pedal a bike. We can go to Balboa Park and he'll ride happy as a clam along the bike path.
If you think something's wrong, it's not about you. Don't bury your head in the sand. Go get help, because the help is out there to make your life and your child's life just so much better. And if you're lucky enough to get in with CARD, I can't even tell you what a difference it's made in our lives. From 4 years ago, just the quality of life we have, the quality of life Riley has, the progress he's made from being a child who wanted to stay in his room and play Toy Story and line up his Toy Story dolls all day, to a first grader who's working at grade level. It couldn't have happened without CARD intervention, without ABA, and without all the wonderful people we met there.
We're back.
We are. One quick programming note. Somebody has written in and said that our email list is getting blocked while they attempt to sign up. Can we help? I want to let you know that we are aware that there's a problem. If you're trying to sign up for the newsletter, I know it's the first week and everybody's wanting. Emily did a brilliant newsletter this month.
Can't wait to see it.
But it is broken. You can go to our Facebook page if you want to see it. It is posted there. It is broken at the moment. We are aware of it, and it will be fixed as soon as we possibly can, because we know, I don't know if you know this, Nancy, that gearing up towards the holiday months, we're already, if you've noticed in my office, there are already boxes of things, because people are giving us stuff to give away to our viewers.
Oh, I love it. Aren't you generous?
We are going to be giving away so many things throughout the holidays. I just get so excited when I think about it. So you're going to want to sign up for the newsletter, because that's where all the information will be about how to participate.
And we have so many great guests that are coming up. I mentioned Johnny Higginson, who runs this amazing program for children with autism and wounded warriors with horses. We've got Vin DeBona, the creator of America's Funniest Home Videos.
Which will be so exciting.
I worked with Vin in television. He's a legend in television. He's on the Actor Day board. He's being honored at our big gala, Denim and Diamonds. And he's going to come on. Maybe we could talk him into a few tickets for AFV for a family with a guided tour. What do you think?
Oh, that would be very exciting.
I think we can do that.
My son would just explode if he had a chance to do
I bet Vin will do that for us.
And also we have a very exciting guest next week, somebody that you know from a
Robin. Okay, all right. Let me explain to you how.
Your face just lit up.
This guy's a rock star, and I mean literally a rock star. He was the lead singer of Bruce Springsteen's first band, Steel Mill. Bruce was deemed not to have the best voice because Robin had a better voice. And I met them when I was a teenager in Richmond, Virginia. And of course, I was already on my way to being kind of a groupie, and became friends with the band. I knew Bruce when I was 17.
How about that?
And Robin, I kind of had a big crush on. And we got reconnected through Facebook. I heard a song that he had written to save the Chesapeake Bay. So I contacted him and said, I don't know if you remember me. He wrote me right back, and I said, would you write a song for our Active Day for Military Families campaign? He wrote that song. It's called Maybe Tomorrow. It's on our website on act-today.org. If you go go to the military page. It is one beautiful song, and he just captured how difficult the life is for a military family with a child with autism. He's going to be here next week on September 11th.
Yes.
How timely is that?
Yes.
And he's going to tell us the inspiration for the song, which he got from talking and hearing about the battles of Karen Driscoll, who now is at Autism Speaks, advocating for military families. So lots of different connections here. It's going to be very exciting.
Very exciting. So, and until then, before that we get to that, I promised everyone, and I saved it for when you were going to be here because you had written me an email. If I wish I could share with you Nancy's emails because she sends me some amazing emails. But there was a post on the Huffington Post last week. A mom who apparently somebody had dropped a note on her car when it was parked in the handicap spot.
And what I love is the response from the mom.
Yes.
Who Suzanne Perryman, who's a blogger for special needs at moms.com. And the note was, "You are clearly not disabled. Shame on you." Okay, well, first of all, who gave you the right to be the indignity police?
Right.
Okay. She wrote a response, and I'm just going to read it. It's not too long here. And it's so, I'll read parts of it. I think I recognize you. I do. Before becoming a mom, I used to live in your world of black and white with everything in order, in its place. I had a plan, a schedule, a list of friends, projects to check off. How wonderful for you that your life is so structured, so dependable, and so predictable that you cling to the line dividing right and wrong. Black and white, compelled to comment when you think someone is coloring outside those lines. Well, this time, in your hurry to keep things neat and orderly, you didn't see the whole picture. I guess you didn't see the accessible permit hanging from my car window, giving me permission to park close to the entrance. You didn't see the wheelchair lift permanently installed in the back of my SUV. You didn't see me unload my little girl's pink manual wheelchair that we use for quick trips. Maybe from your view, you only saw my older daughter and me, not Zoe's little bubblegum pink wheelchair. But forget all that. It could have been my older daughter and me with that day, parked in that same spot, and depending on her health at that moment, in your eyes, we would appear to be at fault. Even though her doctor almost nags me every day to use the medically authorized permit to conserve her energy when needed. But looking at her, you wouldn't know she has the same progressive metabolic disorder as her younger sister. So both girls are special needs. She doesn't have a wheelchair, but she has the same rights, all invisible to you from your perspective of the world. I recognize where you are from. I used to live there too. I used to have checkoff lists, awards touting my accomplishments, perfect hair, great skin, sparkly eyes, a great wit, a clean car, a social life, a large social network, an organized calendar, vacation plans set in stone, no overdue library books. But then I became a mom, and unexpectedly, the mom of a special needs child, a child with no lifelong guarantee, no definitive prognosis, and no detailed treatment plans. Now my family has good doctors, a good attitude, and a good family life. So she goes on and ends it with, I am even grateful that I no longer live in your black and white world. So I think that Suzanne Perryman kind of summed it up. Life for moms like us is not always on a schedule. Life for moms like us may not look pretty, but we do the best we can, and we depend on compassion and understanding from those of you who have a neurotypical, typical, perfect life, although we know none of you really do. And maybe the part that scares you the most about moms that don't have perfect kids is the idea that maybe your kid could be that kid too. Maybe.
I don't know about you, but I think back to when I lived in that neighborhood, when I was somebody who didn't get it. because for most of us, there was a period of time when we didn't. And I, from time to time, revisit that and compare what my life was like before I got it and what it's like now. And what's interesting is that I'm always grateful that I understand now. It was bliss being in ignorance, right? Because we didn't know.
Right.
And we thought we knew.
We thought we knew.
We thought we knew. But I would, if I had to choose, I would choose my life now.
Yeah.
Because of the riches that I have. So in a way, you know, this person who had the time to write such a ridiculous note, and who's walking around, you know, feeling like they have it all figured out, I feel sorry for that person. You know, and what's interesting is that that would never occur to them.
Right.
I think it's important for us to remember that it is ignorance. As I said, ignorance is bliss sometimes. But I would choose what we have, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would, despite the fact that I didn't sleep at all last night.
Yes, you poor thing.
And then I took Wyatt to a birthday party where with his class, which are all typical kids. And, you know, of course, I'm the one that has to go into the bathroom with him to make, when he puts his bathing suit on, to make sure he doesn't come out naked, because he's 11 now. I had to order the special pizza, gluten-free, dairy-free pizza, because it was a pizza party. I had to cook the special cake for him to have cake. Then I had to ask his little typical friends, who are wonderful, they're like mini therapists, don't let him just stem in the water, try to engage him in games. And the girls tried, you know, his little girlfriends at school. And all in all, it was successful, even though I had a checklist of things I had to do to make it appear okay to the normal world that was going to be there.
Right.
So it's okay.
And I'm sure all the other kids and all the other parents didn't realize that, you know, all the things that were going on behind the curtain.
Of course not.
That you were the man behind the curtain.
Of course not.
But, you know, there's a special place for you in heaven, Nancy. We are literally out of time, but I want to remind everybody we've got a great show planned for you tomorrow. So make sure that you're with us. We'll be back next week with our special guest.
Our special guest next week is Robin Thompson.
Yes.
On September 11th.
I forgot that you were underslept.
Yeah.
Anyway, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Great day.